More than 3,500 years ago, the Nok civilization emerged in what is now central Nigeria. Mysterious, ancient, forgotten. The Nok culture left behind haunting terracotta sculptures and the earliest signs of iron smelting in sub-Saharan Africa. Was Nok an isolated phenomenon, or was it the ancestor of the later powerful kingdoms of Ife, Benin, and the Igbo-speaking states? According to historians, at a time when Europe was still in the Bronze Age, Nok was already in the Iron Age. Their advanced mastery of iron and sophisticated terracotta artistry continues to confound scholars and archaeologists. And though the Nok culture left behind no written records, what they did leave behind reveals enough about them. Today, let's examine the Nok civilization, its origins, culture, and mysterious disappearance. And stay with me as I look at what the evidence from archaeology, art, and metallurgy tells us about Nok's possible links to the rise of Nigeria's most iconic kingdoms. Please take a moment to support me by simply clicking the like button. Thank you. The Nok civilization takes its name from the quiet village of Nok in present-day Kaduna State, Nigeria, where in 1928, during routine tin mining operations, workers accidentally unearthed a stylized, haunting, and refined clay head. That accidental discovery would go on to reveal one of Africa's oldest and most intriguing cultures. Soon, more terracotta sculptures were found, scattered across a vast region between modern-day Abuja, Jos, and southern Kaduna. Archaeological evidence suggests Nok civilization flourished from as early as 1500 BC, centuries before the emergence of ancient Rome, and it lasted until around 500 AD. The exact origin of the Nok people remains uncertain. However, scholars and archaeologists have put forward several theories based on archaeological evidence, settlement patterns, and cultural parallels. One theory suggests that Saharan or North African groups may have migrated southwards to initially settle in the northern region of modern-day Nigeria and later moved to the Nok region. This theory is based on the discovery that grains cultivated by the Nok people were indigenous to the Saharan region. However, there is little concrete evidence to support direct migration from North Africa. Instead, it's more likely that if influences existed, they came via trans-Saharan trade networks, not population movement. Another theory proposes that early farming groups from the West Central Africa area, close to the Benue River, gradually moved to settle in the Nok regions. This theory relies on similarities in pottery styles and agricultural tools found across the region. These groups are supposed to have gradually fused with local forager populations, giving rise to the Nok culture. But interestingly, most scholars have come to agree on a third theory, that the Nok people were indigenous to central Nigeria and their civilization was likely the result of local innovation, especially in agriculture, iron smelting, and terracotta artistry. While external influences may have existed, there's no strong evidence of a migration from outside West Africa. Meanwhile, in comparing the discoveries at two archaeological sites, Samun Dukia and Taruga, which we will talk about shortly, the archaeologist Graham Connor came to the conclusion that the Nok civilization was not a single ethnic group, but a cultural style shared by multiple iron-using farming societies across central Nigeria. This brings us to the observation that Nok settlements seem to have stretched across the central Nigerian plateau, east of the Niger River and north of the Benue. Based on archaeological discoveries, Nok territory is estimated to have covered more than 30,000 square miles. That is an area the size of Portugal. The first documented discovery of the Nok civilization occurred in 1928, near the small village of Nok in Kaduna State. A mine worker, while engaged in alluvial tin mining, accidentally unearthed a terracotta head buried deep in the earth. This striking artifact, unlike anything seen before in the region, would become the first known piece of Nok sculpture. In 1943, British archaeologist Bernard Fagg, working in Jos, in Plateau State, as an administrative officer, was shown a terracotta head reportedly being used as a scarecrow in a yam field. The artifact, now known as the Gemma head, intrigued Fagg, who recognized its similarities to another terracotta piece he had previously seen. He soon learned that local people had been uncovering similar artifacts buried in hilltops, fields, and other odd places. Motivated by this, Fagg established a research base and shortly gathered nearly 200 terracotta pieces from persuasion, purchases, and excavations. In that same year, 1943, discoveries were made in Samundukia, also in Plateau State. These accidental finds were later followed by controlled excavations in 1952, and here archaeologists would uncover a wealth of terracotta fragments and evidence of iron-smelting activities. What made Samundukia especially important was that many of the Nok artifacts found there were relatively undisturbed and well-preserved, allowing researchers to begin establishing a more reliable chronological framework for Nok cultural activity. In the early 1960s, more structured archaeological efforts were undertaken at Taruga, a site located 60 kilometers southeast of Abuja, led by British archaeologist Bernard Fagg. Excavations at Taruga between 1961 and 1962 revealed one of the most comprehensive insights into the technological achievements of the Nok people. Researchers uncovered more than 13 iron-smelting furnaces, along with numerous iron tools such as knives, hoes, and arrowheads. Charcoal remains found within the furnaces were subjected to radiocarbon dating, indicating that the site had been actively inhabited and utilized between 500 BC and 200 AD. Advanced radiocarbon and thermoluminescence dating techniques applied to further discoveries pushed the known timeline of the Nok culture even further back, to as early as 1500 BC, a little more than 3,500 years ago. The Taruga findings also showed conclusive evidence that the Nok civilization had independently developed iron-smelting technology, making it the earliest of such cultures in sub-Saharan Africa at the time. From the post-1960s onward, a series of discoveries across a wider geographical region, stretching between the Jos Plateau, Abuja, and Kaduna, helped piece together a fuller picture of Nok life and society. Surprisingly, in 1989, German scientists working in northeastern Nigeria's Chad Basin, examining the beginnings of sedentary farming societies in the Chad Basin, found distinct Nok culture sites, although most of these sites had been looted. Furthermore, 11 sculptures unearthed near the city of Sokoto and others discovered in Katsina have been found to be similar to the Nok style, but they have not been confirmed to be from the Nok culture. We can definitely conclude that the territorial extent of the Nok civilization is yet to be fully explored. As said by the anthropologist George Murdoch with regards to the archaeology of the region, for every ton of earth moved by archaeologists on the Nile, a teaspoon is moved on the Niger. One of the most astonishing aspects of the Nok civilization was their early mastery of iron smelting. At Taruga, archaeologists uncovered over a dozen ancient furnaces, complete with slag heaps and remnants of tuyers, ceramic tubes used to pump air into fires to make it hot enough to melt iron. This makes Nok one of the earliest known cultures to smelt iron, placing them at the very beginning of the Iron Age globally. The implications were massive. Iron tools, hoes, axes, cleavers, allowed Nok people to farm more effectively, clear land, and build larger settlements. What amazes historians is that Nok seem to have bypassed the Bronze Age entirely, jumping straight from the Stone Age into the Iron Age. Archaeologists often unearth iron tools just a short distance from stone axes, indicating they were likely used within the same communities during the same period. This also suggests that at some stage in their development, iron may have been too scarce or valuable to use for everyday items like axes, which could still be made from stone. Nok art was what first captured global attention and still stirs imagination today. Their sculptures are among the oldest and most sophisticated found in Africa. These artifacts are mostly terracotta sculptures of human heads, human figures, and animals. One of the identifying characteristics of Nok sculptures is the triangular or oval-shaped eyes on human faces. The figures also often have elaborate hairstyles and are often life-size or slightly smaller. Nok sculptures are hollow, built using a technique known as coil building and shaped from coarse clay. Once molded, they were coated in a slip, a thin layer of wet clay, and polished to a smooth, almost glossy finish before being fired, likely in open-air kilns using wood and grass. But here's where it gets truly fascinating. The sculptures show a wide range of human experience. Some figures are adorned with detailed jewelry and elaborate hairstyles. Others bear signs of illness, facial paralysis, or physical deformities, suggesting a society deeply observant of both beauty and suffering. A few figures wield weapons or tools, others wear expressions that hint at ritual, trance, or spiritual communion. And because these statues were mostly found in pieces eroded by water buried deep in alluvial mud, the mystery surrounding their purpose only deepens. What were these sculptures used for? We may never know for certain, but archaeologists and historians have theories based on where they were found. Some believe the sculptures were ancestor figures used in religious or spiritual rituals. Others might have been grave markers or protective charms designed to prevent disease or infertility. The figures with elaborate clothing and jewelry probably represent high-status individuals or ritual leaders. The discovery of dome-shaped bases on some of the figures also suggests they may have been used as finials on the roofs of buildings, perhaps on shrines or homes of the elite. Because the composition of the clay used in the sculptures found across the regions is uniform, experts believe that the art may have been made in a central location. They suggest that the Nok art industry was possibly centralized, possibly controlled by local rulers or elites. This challenges old colonial assumptions that very early African societies were stateless or unorganized. Clearly, Nok society had artisans, spiritual leaders, and possibly ruling classes sophisticated enough to manage complex industries. One of the most intriguing finds is a Nok terracotta sculpture showing two figures paddling a dugout canoe along with their cargo. This image opens a window into Nok's regional interactions, hinting at riverine trade networks. The Gurara River, a tributary of the Niger River, runs through the Nok heartland. That means Nok people may have used waterways not only for fishing, but for travel and trade. And this trade could also have extended all the way to the Atlantic coast, as suggested by the sculpture of a figure wearing a seashell as a headdress, something unlikely to be found inland. These point to an interconnected world where Nok communities may have exchanged goods like iron tools, art, and possibly agricultural produce across long distances. The decline of Nok society remains largely a mystery. After around 200 AD, evidence suggests a significant population drop, marked by a sharp decrease in pottery and terracotta found in soil layers from that period. Theorized possible causes include heavy use and depletion of natural resources, which may have forced people to migrate from the area. It may also have been due to environmental changes, internal conflict, or simply a transformation into new cultures over time. A couple of centuries after the disappearance of the Nok civilization from archaeological records, a new cultural powerhouse emerged to its south, the Kingdom of Ife. Located in present-day Osun State in southwestern Nigeria, Ife likely emerged around 800 AD, since archaeologists found evidence of early Yoruba settlements at Ile-Ife covering this period. Ife flourished between the 11th and 15th centuries AD as a significant part of the trans-Saharan trade. One of Ife's earliest trade routes, up the Niger to Gao in Mali, is said to have been active as early as the 9th century, and ancient glass beads produced in Ife have been found in Burkina Faso, Senegal, Mali, and Mauritania. The Kingdom of Ife is the spiritual home of the Yorubas and the first empire in Yoruba history. At its peak, Ife Kingdom encompassed Oyo in the north and Benin to its south. From the beginning, the people of Ife Kingdom had iron-smelting knowledge, and the art that came out of the kingdom was astonishing. The bronze and brass sculptures from Ife were so lifelike, so detailed, that when Europeans first saw them, they refused to believe Africans made them. Ife also had stunning pieces in terracotta and stone that depicted their sophisticated understanding of religion, politics, and fashion. Although centuries apart, the Ife civilizations, with its advanced metalworking skills and a tradition of naturalistic portraiture, share such striking parallels with Nok that their likely connection continues to fuel debate among historians and archaeologists. The refined terracotta sculptures found in Ife, especially at Itayemo, show some notable resemblance to the renditions found in Nok. Both Ife and Nok are characterized by a focus on the naturalistic depiction of the human head. Actually, these two cultures are the only known African societies to have created terracotta sculptures depicting fully formed human figures of nearly life-sized proportions. In contrast, most other terracotta works found across West Africa are much smaller and often only focus on the head when larger. Moreover, old societies placed great importance on ritual authority. Nok figures are believed to represent deities, ancestors, or spiritual intercessors, just as Ife's bronze heads are associated with kingship, divine heritage, and cosmology. They were used in rituals or ceremonies and held cultural importance in their societies. The archaeologist Bernard Fagg pointed out the striking similarities in the style and subject matter of Nok and Ife art. However, he admitted that there is no direct evidence showing that the artists of Ife ever encountered Nok sculptures. Also, as proposed by the archaeologist Graham Connor, Nok artwork may have represented a shared artistic style adopted by many iron-using communities over centuries. This means the stylistic DNA of Nok may have quietly survived through oral traditions, migration, and cultural diffusion, ultimately influencing Yoruba visual culture centuries later. Beyond art, there are cultural echoes as well. Nok's early mastery of iron smelting seemed to have laid a technological foundation that later civilizations, including Ife, built upon. Though separated by time, both cultures locally mastered metallurgy, used iron tools in agriculture and hunting before their neighbors, as the archaeologist Peter Brunig of Goethe University pointed out. West Africa moved from sedentary farming complexes like Nok to great empires like Ife and Benin in the space of 1,000 years. No such development could have happened in isolation. In agreement, some historians speculate that Nok's influence was not linear but diffused, its art style, spiritual symbols, and ironworking traditions surviving in smaller, localized cultures, eventually re-emerging and evolving in Ife's urban landscape. Despite these arguments, we must tread carefully as no substantive direct evidence has been found to link Nok people to the founders of Ife. The Great Benin Kingdom emerged in the rainforests of southern Nigeria in present-day Edo State in the 12th century AD and flourished for nearly 1,000 years. It was one of the most developed states in the coastal hinterland of West Africa and was led by the Oba of Benin, a divine monarch whose court patronized a vast guild of metal workers, ivory carvers, and artists. Benin's most famous contributions to African art are the Benin bronzes, plaques, sculptures, and ceremonial objects cast in brass using the lost wax technique. These artworks showcase a level of sophistication in casting and symbolism that has stunned the world. Figures of warriors, dignitaries, animals, and royalty were crafted with remarkable realism and depth. While the Benin bronzes date from the 13th century onward, some researchers have long wondered whether earlier traditions may have laid the artistic foundations that the Benin craftsmen later refined. So far, there is no direct archaeological evidence that proves a cultural link between the Nok and Benin peoples, and no Benin oral traditions reference such connections. But as believed by some, the sculptures of Ife very likely influenced those produced in the Kingdom of Benin. In fact, some claim that it was the king of Ife who sent a master craftsman to Benin to spread his sculptural skills. This may explain the many points of similarity in the art of the Benin and Ife cultures. Art historians like Ekpo and Frank Willett have suggested that the broader artistic tradition of such civilizations as Nok may show long-term continuity, even without direct ethnic lineage. In this view, Nok's legacy would influence other cultures indirectly, perhaps through intermediary societies like Ife, in the case of Benin. Less than half a millennium after the disappearance of Nok civilization, to its southeast, another sophisticated culture emerged, almost fully formed, the Igbo people. You can check out this video on the history of the first Igbo kingdom. The Igbo people inhabit southeastern Nigeria in a region rich with rivers, forest, and agricultural land. By the first millennium AD, the Igbo had already formed complex societies, organized through a decentralized system of kinship, age grades, and councils of elders, a structure quite different from centralized kingdoms like Ife and Benin. In the 1930s, in Igbo-Ukwu, a small town in present-day Anambra State, archaeologists uncovered some of West Africa's most advanced bronze artifacts, bronzes that predate the famed Benin bronzes by hundreds of years. Several archaeological sites were excavated at Igbo-Ukwu, and among the finds were copper, iron, and bronze vessels, ritual pots, regalia, textiles, beads, and tools, some made with lost wax casting, a complex technique indicating long-standing metallurgical knowledge. The discoveries, some of which were dated to the 9th century AD, showcased a society with advanced iron-smelting expertise, deep religious traditions, trade connections, and refined artistry. After this, a prehistoric archaeological site was discovered at Opi, a community in Enugu State. Iron-smelting furnaces and slag discovered at this site have been dated to 750 BC, 2,700 years ago, and later in the 1960s in the ancient town of Leja, also in Enugu State on the edge of the Benue Plateau, the discovery of antiquated pottery led to archaeological excavations that show human activities in that region around 4,000 years ago, that is, circa 2000 BC. This prehistoric site contained iron-smelting furnaces, pottery, beads, stone tools, and other artifacts that show evidence of early agricultural practices and a settlement that was likely organized around an iron-smelting economy. This is one of the most significant discoveries in West Africa, and I'll come back to it shortly. Scholars have claimed that there are artistic and symbolic parallels, as well as cultural similarities between Nok and the Igbos. To start with, although Nok sculptures are made of terracotta, while Igbo-Ukwus are bronze, both cultures excelled in figurative art, capturing human form and ceremonial objects in great detail. Like Nok terracotta, Igbo artifacts feature intricate adornments, chains, bracelets, elaborate hairstyles, and textile patterns. Some Igbo-Ukwu bronzes even contain beaded designs similar to the jewelry motifs seen in Nok figures. Secondly, both cultures seem to have created art for spiritual or ritual use, not merely decoration. Nok terracottas are believed to be tied to ancestor worship, healing, or protection, and many of them were found buried close to graves and shrines, while Igbo-Ukwu bronzes include ritual vessels, altars, and symbolic animal figures, likely used in sacred ceremonies. Both Nok and Igbo societies show evidence of ancestor veneration. In Igbo cosmology, the spirits of the dead, Indichie, are honored and consulted through oracles and shrines. Also, the prevalence of certain animal symbolism in both cultures was highlighted, especially figures like snakes and birds. In Igbo religion, the python is sacred and the bird is a messenger between worlds. Nok terracottas also depict a lot of snakes and birds, sometimes in symbolic postures. All these have made some to argue that Nok culture may have migrated east or south, either through direct movement or gradual diffusion of cultural ideas. This theory is based on the geographic plausibility. Though Nok sites are centered in central Nigeria, they are not far from northern Igboland. It's plausible that groups migrated south-eastward, especially if environmental stress or resource depletion forced their movement. The possibility that Igbo iron technology evolved from Nok cannot be dismissed outright. It's believed that the use of advanced techniques like lost wax casting in Igbo-Ukwu suggests a long tradition of technological development, possibly influenced by earlier metallurgic practices. Furthermore, some Igbo oral histories speak of ancient migrations from the north, which can possibly reference movements from Nok territories. Check out my video on the theories of the origin of the Igbo people. However, some critical observations weaken the argument for direct influence. For one, there is no archaeological trail linking Nok directly to Igbo-Ukwu, no sites showing gradual transition or blending of cultures across time. Also, Nok made terracottas, while Igbo-Ukwu specialized in bronze work. The technological leap is considerable and may reflect independent innovation, possibly influenced more by trade networks than by cultural inheritance. But most importantly, the archaeological discoveries at Leja dating back to 2000 BC, significantly challenged the theory that the Igbo were influenced by the Nok civilization. Because as it stands, Leja predates the Nok civilization, which is generally dated from 1500 BC by half a millennium. But it's worthy to note that some scholars, in agreement with the British archaeologist Bernard Fagg, believe that since the Nok culture had the key markers of an advanced civilization, refined art and organized worship, metal smelting, and sufficient population to support these activities by 1500 BC, it had almost certainly begun earlier and survived longer than the evidence we currently have. Fagg wrote that the Nok culture was the product of a mature tradition with the probability of a long antecedent history, of which as yet no trace has been found. Meanwhile, the Leja site shows evidence of iron smelting and settled agricultural life, features once thought were started by Nok. Leja archaeology suggests that early Igbo communities had already developed advanced technologies and social organization independently before, or at the very least, parallel to Nok. In short, currently, Leja indicates that the Igbo culture evolved autonomously and before the Nok culture. As archaeology gradually and methodically uncovers more evidence and confirms the timelines of major West African cultures, our understanding of ancient civilizations will become clearer and more firmly established. Today, Nok artifacts are scattered in museums and private collections around the world. Many were looted before proper excavation could take place, robbing us of context that might have answered lingering questions. Scientific fieldwork is still limited, and much of Nok's story remains untold. Do you think Nok influenced any kingdom? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, and shout out to Tak Moran for sending me down this fascinating rabbit hole.